They say curiosity is a dangerous thing. And on my street, it almost destroyed a woman's entire reputation. Picture this: the first light of dawn creeping over the rooftops. The world still half asleep, and there I am, staring out my front window in disbelief as the president of our homeowners association tiptoes down my driveway in a bathrobe and pulls letters straight out of my mailbox. Before we dive in, hit like and subscribe, and comment your country or city so I know where you're watching from. It sounds like something out of a ridiculous sitcom, but it happened. And what began as a petty mystery spiraled into a federal investigation that ended with her wrists in handcuffs. Let me rewind to the start. It was around 5:30 one morning, but the story really began weeks earlier. I'd started noticing little oddities with my mail, bills arriving days late, a birthday card from my sister that vanished into thin air, even the IRS insisting they'd sent forms I swore I'd never received. At first I blamed sloppy postal service or simple bad luck, but the missing mail wasn't random. It followed a pattern. Too frequent, too deliberate. That's when suspicion crept in. Was someone tampering with my mailbox? So I hatched a plan. One morning before sunrise, I poured myself a strong cup of coffee, settled into the armchair by the front window, and waited. The neighborhood was silent except for the hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a dog. Then, just as the sun began smearing gold across the pavement, movement caught my eye. A figure. At first, I assumed it was some porch pirate or early morning jogger. But as the silhouette drew closer, the details sharpened, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. It was Marlene, our HOA president, the self-appointed guardian of community standards, the woman who once fined my neighbor because their lawn gnome was not in compliance. There she was, patting down my driveway in a lavender robe and fuzzy slippers, like she was out for the morning paper. And then she did it. With the casual confidence of someone who had done this 100 times before, she opened my mailbox, rifled through the envelopes, and tucked a few under her arm. I was frozen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, watching the queen of neighborhood morality commit a federal crime right there on my property. My first instinct was to fling the door open and demand answers right then and there, but I stopped myself. If she was brazen enough to do it once, chances were she'd try again, and if I was her target, there was no telling how many of my neighbors had already been hit. The following evening, during our regular HOA meeting, I decided to test the waters. I brought up the strange gaps in my mail as casually as I could, pretending it was just small talk. Across the table, Marlene smiled sweetly, tilting her head so that the pearl studs on her ears caught the light. "Oh, the Postal Service is hopeless these days," she said with a chuckle, waving a manicured hand as if the matter were trivial. Her tone told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't laughing about the mail. She was laughing about me. That was the moment I realized this had gone far beyond a petty neighborhood dispute. Stealing or tampering with mail isn't just rude. It's a federal offense, outlined under Title 18, Section 1708 of the U.S. Code. It carries fines, prison time, and the kind of consequences even a self-important HOA president can't talk her way out of. Confronting her directly would only spark an ugly shouting match and give her more opportunities to hide behind committee jargon. What I needed wasn't another argument. I needed irrefutable evidence, the kind that would hold up in front of people who wear badges, not name tags. So I reached out to the United States Postal Inspection Service. Most people have never even heard of them, but they're the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the country. And when it comes to protecting the mail, they mean business. I explained everything. The missing bills, the vanished birthday card, the pre-dawn theft I'd witnessed with my own eyes. They didn't dismiss me or suggest I talk to the local police. Instead, they asked detailed follow-up questions, documented my statement, and then one of the inspectors, a calm, no-nonsense guy named Ramirez, got straight to the point. "Sir," he said, "if what you're describing is accurate, we're looking at a federal violation under Title 18, Section 1708. That can mean up to 5 years behind bars. If you're willing to work with us, we can arrange a controlled delivery." I didn't even hesitate. "I'm in." The plan was deceptively simple but brilliant in execution. They would prepare a decoy envelope, a seemingly ordinary piece of mail, but hidden inside would be a tiny GPS tracker, a silent witness that would record every move Marlene made the next time she reached into a mailbox that wasn't hers. The decoy letter was flawless, ordinary in every visible way. A simple envelope, neatly sealed and tucked among the rest of my mail. But hidden inside was a tiny GPS tracker, ready to ping the moment anyone removed it from my mailbox. The next morning, I carried out the plan exactly as the inspectors instructed. I placed the bait envelope where my regular mail would go, closed the box, and returned to my post by the front window. My nerves were on fire, my grip on my coffee mug so tight. I was sure the ceramic would crack. Across the street, a plain gray sedan idled quietly, windows tinted just enough to conceal the two federal inspectors sitting inside. They were watching, waiting. And then, right on cue, just after sunrise, the familiar flash of lavender appeared at the edge of my driveway. Marlene. She moved with the same casual confidence as before, her robe swaying as she walked like she was simply out enjoying the morning air. But instead of greeting neighbors or fetching a newspaper, she headed straight for my mailbox. Without a second's hesitation, she flipped it open, plucked out the decoy envelope, and slipped it smoothly into the pocket of her robe. Then she turned and strolled away, blissfully unaware that she had just stepped into a federal trap. Not even 30 seconds passed before the quiet hum of the surveillance. Radio broke the silence. "Tracker's active," came Inspector Ramirez's voice. "Target moving northbound." I held my breath as the unmarked sedan eased away from the curb, keeping a careful distance behind her. Marlene had no idea. In her mind, she was untouchable, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, immune to the rules she imposed on everyone else. But this time was different. She hadn't just pilfered a neighbor's mail, she'd stolen a piece of government property. And that meant the situation was officially out of my hands. The feds were in charge now. By the time Marlene stepped through the front door of her home, the postal inspectors had already coordinated with local law enforcement. The GPS tracker showed her location in real time, and now it was only a matter of waiting. "She's inside," Ramirez said, glancing over at me. "Once she opens that envelope, we'll have all the evidence we need." "That's a federal offense." I nodded, heart pounding, eyes locked on the tracker's signal. I didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the device confirmed the inevitable. She had broken the seal. The tracker's signal changed. The envelope had been opened. That was the sign they were waiting for. I slipped on my jacket and followed, from a safe distance as the unmarked sedan pulled onto Marlene's street. This time, the quiet stakeout was over. Flashing lights painted the cul-de-sac, red and blue as federal inspectors, rolled to a stop at the end of her driveway. Marlene stepped out onto her porch, still holding the decoy letter in her hand like it was some prize she'd earned. Her usual self-satisfied smirk was plastered across her face, but it didn't last. Inspector Ramirez approached with measured steps, flashing his badge. His voice was calm but carried the weight of authority. "Ma'am," he said, "you're under arrest for theft of United States mail, a federal violation. Under Title 18, Section 1708. Please keep your hands where I can see them." Marlene's eyes widened. "What? No, this is ridiculous. I'm the president of the HOA. I have authority here." "Authority doesn't include breaking federal law," Ramirez replied, cutting her off without missing a beat. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." One by one, front doors began to open as neighbors peeked out to see what was happening. Smartphones appeared. Cameras started clicking. And there she was, the self-appointed ruler of our little community, standing on her own porch in handcuffs as the morning sun climbed higher in the sky. I'll never forget the look on her face as Ramirez read her rights. It wasn't shame. It wasn't anger. It was shock and the stunned realization that the rules she'd twisted and bent for years had finally closed in around her. For as long as anyone could remember, Marlene had gotten away with bullying homeowners, weaponizing bylaws, and manipulating every vote to serve herself. But this wasn't an HOA fine or a neighborhood squabble. This was federal law, and that's a game she couldn't control. As officers led her down the walkway toward the waiting vehicle, Ramirez turned to me. "The evidence is strong," he said. "This case will stick." And he was right. Within weeks, Marlene was indicted on multiple counts of mail theft. The HOA board, desperate to salvage their reputation, voted to remove her unanimously. The woman who once strutted around in her Bathrobe like she owned every square foot of the neighborhood was now a cautionary tale whispered about over fences and at block parties. Some neighbors laughed. Others just shook their heads. But one thing was certain. The fear she'd built her power on was gone. As for me, the stolen letters no longer mattered. What mattered was the principle. Justice, real justice, had finally arrived. Because when you tamper with someone's mailbox, you're not just playing petty neighborhood politics. You're challenging the federal government. And they don't play games.